local is always something that we did, but for the board, it really does. For me, it's about the public and allowing the hygienist to be able to do that service because we know how it'll benefit. It's the continuity of care, right? We know that hygienists can do it. So, for me as a board member, it's not about the advocacy part. It's really about what it is, but it's advocating for the patient too. I want to leave a legacy in my profession. That's what I want to leave. I want to leave a legacy that I impacted and made a difference in my profession, not only here in Georgia, but nationally too. I just want to see our profession seen as a healthcare provider, and everything I do every single day is I'm really trying to push dentistry into this limelight of what we really provide to our patients, and not just about cleaning teeth. It's about providing healthcare. It's about quality of life.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 325. I am your host, Andrew Johnston. And thank you for joining me today for today's conversation with Misty Mattingly and guest co-hosted by Emily Boge. And hot dang, everyone, I am just so excited about this episode because it features two hygienists who have really helped to affect change in our profession as hygienists. And seeing from a distance what Misty has done really gives me hope that there are people out there making a change, that they are able to actually make change. Because I think I've fallen into this trap that maybe many of you also feel this way, that thinking that dentistry and dental hygiene, that it's always going to be the same. That the people who say that they are fighting for us just can't seem to get things done. But then I see things like this happening and it gives me hope again. So that is the message that I would love to come across for you today in this interview. Next week we have our monthly roundtable. It's going to be called something along the lines of like what's wrong with dentistry or something like that. But we also are discussing solutions. So it's not going to be a complain fest. We're going to talk about the solutions of some of the big picture problems that we're encountering. And we're going to welcome back Misty and Emily that are on this episode for another week, and then they're joined by Raphael Rondon. We were recording it from the floor of the Hinman meeting, and the energy of the exhibit hall floor kind of got to us a little bit, so I apologize in advance. We went a little bit long. It's probably going to be closer to an hour long for that particular episode. We recorded a bunch of interviews this past weekend and also at the Hinman meeting, so over the next several weeks, we'll have shows about the keto diet, TMJ issues, treatment planning and case acceptance, getting control of your finances. So please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single one of those episodes. We also brought on Stephanie Botts to do our tipisodes once a month on ergonomics. It just actually released last week for the first one. So if you're subscribed, you're not going to miss any of her tipisodes. Those air on Fridays if you want to be on the lookout for that. One last thing before we get to the interview, we have a new review on Apple Podcasts, and this one is from JB RDH, JAYBEE RDH. It's titled Always Informative, 5 stars. Thank you so much for the 5 stars. And it says, I encourage all my dental friends to listen in for current information. Many episodes I've listened to multiple times as there is so much to learn. Thank you. So JB, actually, thank you so much for the feedback, and thank you for getting all of your dental friends to be a part of this. I know that we're the ones hosting the podcast, and we have awesome guests on there, but the podcast really is for you. It's for the people. It's for the everyday hygienist in hopes that we're all going to get better together. So thank you so much for doing that. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you enjoy this interview with Misty Mattingly. Okay, start from the beginning of so you saw that and then what was your thought process?
Okay, so it says 2022
I don't need to read the whole thing, but just
navigating dental disruptions.
Right.
My question is, why is change considered a disruption? See, maybe it's just the way I read it, but I read this as we need to be trained to navigate what's disrupting us.
But don't you feel there are lots of disruptions happening in dentistry, including issues with insurance and getting payment and the things that they're now requiring to get paid that should be saying we're fighting those things?
Well, and I feel like maybe if it said navigating dental change, I'd be okay. But when I think of a disruption in my day, it has a negative connotation. But when I think a change, I think, oh, change. I'm excited for change. Because change means that we're growing, right? Because if you're not changing, you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're not changing.
I feel like a lot of people are scared of change, though.
They're not scared of disruptions?
I don't see it as negative as you do, but that's interesting.
I'm a disc trainer, and so a lot of hygienists are S's, and they do not like change.
No.
But do they like disruptions, though? They don't like that either, though.
Well, no. I mean, a disruption.
I feel like
that's what I mean. I consider the two to be both. I mean, I don't
synonymous.
necessarily mean it's negative. I kind of see where you're going with that, considering our last conversation. But
it keeps it, and I could be just hypersensitive because just coming off my dissertation and every single word gets scrutinized.
Yeah.
But when I see things like this, I think, like, if we don't want the medical community to think we're negative, why are we focusing on disruptions? And I'm probably overthinking because that's kind of how I roll.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, that's how I feel.
Well, listeners, we've our start of this podcast, and the thing is, I know, I didn't want to tell you, but here's the thing. So, joined today, Misty Mattingly and Emily Boge. We're talking about, like, the bigger picture that I want to talk about is like advocacy, change, legislation, all of those things that Misty's got a ton of things that she's going to share with us. But it goes hand in hand. Because I don't know why you started talking about disruptions and change, but like it's hand in hand.
it is.
Because dentistry has had a trajectory of, well, can a trajectory be flat? Or is that always up? What's a trajectory?
You can have a flat curve, but then it's not a curve.
Okay, well, it's flat. Let's go in one direction and only one direction for so long in so many areas of dentistry. And I feel like we are disrupting it, and Misty's been like on the forefront of all that. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit today. I think that the starting place for that, though, is Misty's just kind of giving our audience a little bit of a background of who you are and kind of what led you to the point that you are in life right now.
Well, I think really what led me to where I am today has to do with really my background. And a lot of people don't know, but I didn't have the greatest background growing up, and I was in foster care and didn't have dental care and things like that growing up. And it was just one of those things that, when I went into the dental office, first off, it was just a place that I felt comfortable and so forth. And it was, they always seemed to like take care of you and were super nice and things like that. But honestly and truly, my first career actually was to be in broadcast journalism. It was not to do hygiene, but I had worked in a dental office when I was like 14, just cleaning instruments and, being a hygiene assistant. And then went off to school for broadcast journalism. And then I was like, you know what? I really missed hygiene or dentistry, let's say. So I went back into dentistry. And then after I graduated hygiene school, I dealt with some of those things that we were talking about, where, you have the standard of care. And matter of fact, why I left was because I was trying to uphold. I had one of those situations where I was asked to do some things that I didn't feel comfortable with. And so I said, you know what? That's really beneath. And I left. And then, it made me really think about how I could change the profession. I always say it's the crazy people who think that they are that can make the change, that if they're crazy enough to think that they can make the change, then they're the ones who actually do.
Sure.
And so, even in hygiene school, when I would hear things about, especially in Georgia, how we couldn't do anesthesia, how we couldn't do we couldn't even see a prophy patient at that point without a dentist present. We work under general supervision. And then, you get involved in ADHA and you learn about, how all the other states are doing things and so forth. So it really made me want to be an advocate for our profession, but also, most importantly, our patients, right? And so that led me down, I'm past president of the Georgia Dental Hygiene Association. We put forth, starting in 2015, we put House Bill 650 up. We've done House Bill 350. We had Senate Bill 2. And then actually House Bill 154 is the one that got through for general supervision. And that really allowed hygienists, but only profis, you guys, only profis. Don't get excited over here, Boge. And so, but that was a stepping stone for us, right, to be able to do that. But most importantly, it allowed hygienists to go into nursing homes in our state because those areas are really underserved. And I had my grandmother passed away in a nursing home. And when I looked at the care that she received, it really made it important to me to do that, right, to pursue that. And then also Wendy Blonde, who was actually president as well of GDHA, she had a caregiver that had taken care of her growing up, and she also died in a nursing home of aspirated pneumonia and from not being cared for. And if you looked at her mouth, it was just horrendous. So it really was a need that we needed in our state. So I went to help do that and help pursue that, and really created those relationships with legislators to do so. And then in 2020, it was funny because how you say those things, you put them out into fruition. I always say, what you put into the universe, you get back. And so it was just one of those things that I said, one day I'd love to be on the Board of Dentistry. And so I really, went after that and, spoke with legislators, and GDHA, of course, supported me and others in the community and in our state. And now I serve on the Board of Dentistry, which is great because I get to represent hygienists. And that's one of the things that I didn't realize this, but I'm only the 5th hygienist ever on the Board of Dentistry in Georgia. And
sorry, sound effect.
Clap, 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 clap.
And it's an honor to serve our state, and our job and mission as a board member is to protect the public, right? And to protect the public for that. And I think that the board has always does a really good job of that, and I think that has kind of changed. And I think that's one of the things that they've really kind of hindered, hygiene in our state some, is because their goal is to try and protect. And some of the things that we talked about, they're trying to protect the public from. And so I'm proud of the board that we have now and that I'm a part of. I will say that when I first got on board, it was really tough because I think I'm much more outspoken than the board had ever had in a hygienist. And I will say a couple times I feel like I kind of took a little beating, but I'm one of those people that just get back up. I'm kind of rowdy,
So can I ask a question real quick? Okay, so you said you don't always have a hygienist on your board.
No, there's only been 5 hygienists ever in the state of Georgia, and there's only 1 hygienist on our board.
So what's the makeup of your board currently?
Currently, our board is made up of 11 members, 9 dentists, 1 consumer, and 1 hygienist.
Okay, so
and right now that's actually...
But is legislatively that you have to have a hygienist or no?
No, legislatively we have to have.
That's what I was confused about because in Iowa there's 9 board members, 5 are dentists always. And then 2 hygienists and 2 public health.
Right. And see, now there's legislation in Georgia right now that actually is going to up. We'll get 1 more hygienist, which is great. I love that aspect of it. But we're also increasing to 16, and that to me is just
that's a big board.
It's a big board, and I think it makes it harder for things to get through. And also, the dynamics of our board right now is really good. Right now we have President Marin. He's done a fabulous job leading and I feel like we have the most progressive board we've ever had here in Georgia. For instance, local anesthesia the board has had the ability to write the rules for local anesthesia since July 1st, 1992. So it'll be 30 years.
I'm not going to do this little sound effect every time you tell me to.
I love that. I love the advocacy sound effect. I think you should just call that sound effect advocacy.
The advocacy sound effect.
But yeah, it's been 30 years come July 2nd, and the board never wrote the rules. And so it's really been great to be on this board and be able to have them support these initiatives. But it's taken a long time, and I think it's one of those things that other hygienists before me were leading that march, and they said it, and I gave them props whenever we brought it up again. But it's one of those things that I'm just one of those people. I'm determined.
Oh, it's so hard with advocacy, Misty.
And you get beat down so much,
and it takes so many years. And so I think
we started in 2015 for that. But the thing that we did with the Board of Dentistry is different than what we did, as far as that goes. I mean, local is always something that we did, but for the board, it really does. for me, it's about the public and allowing the hygienist to be able to do that service, because we know how it'll benefit. It's the continuity of care, right? We know that hygienists can do it. So, for me as a board member, it's not about the advocacy part. It's really about what it is, but it's advocating for the patient too, right? And also I know that by allowing hygienists the ability to provide anesthesia, that it will provide, like dentists have so much on their plates, right? So they're coming in, they got like, think about it. If they have to come in and anesthetize 4 or 5 of the hygiene patients, and they typically have 2 to 3 hygienists working for them, right? So then that's another 15. Then they also have their schedule of, let's say, 10 to 15 patients, and they're having to
and then
anesthetize.
they missed a block, by the way.
Right.
They
And
come back in again later on.
Right.
It
That's
helps
what I mean.
you so much
it just
when you
helps
can
with,
share the load.
Yeah.
so you can share the load, and it
Yep.
creates that partnership. And I think that it will help create that partnership that we really have needed between doctors and hygienists. And I will say that this board has been very supportive of local anesthesia, and we're still not done with it. It still has not completely passed, but the rules have been written. It passed its first one. It's now going to be up for a public hearing. And then we will hopefully, and the public will be able to speak. And I actually ask all hygienists when it comes in. We still have Mississippi's now on the docket, and I was actually able to help with Mississippi and help them with their rules as well. I was very honored that they reached out, their board reached out to the Board of Dentistry and to me personally on social media when it was all over the place, and everybody's like, oh my God, Georgia, right? Because we're down to the last few states.
Right.
But my thing is like, look on these states that are left and help support them, and be able to be a part of that, because so many of our fellow hygienists around the country are doing this, and it's the standard of care. I mean, all of Mississippi and Georgia, all of our students have to learn that criteria and take the national board, right?
We've been doing it in Iowa. I've never known a hygiene world in Iowa where I couldn't give an injection, block, infiltration, anything. And so it just makes me want to come to Georgia and be like, yep, been doing that for like a real long time, and still, knock on wood, nothing's happened.
Well, I know.
No
There's
patience
really no,
yet.
I mean, I will say that's the one great thing that I will say helped is there, and thank you to all your hygienists that provide anesthesia, because there really are no issues out there that we've been able to find. And, I reached out to different liability insurances for our license and all that. And really, in all honesty, it's so low to have, because there's really no issues for hygiene. I mean, we are very well trained in that. And I think that people forget that, we're trained. I always say we're double board certified, right? Which we are, because you have to take a national board and then you have to take a clinical exam,
Yep.
right? I like your 5-year thing. And for those of you guys that are listening, we were talking about this earlier on a different podcast that you'll hear in the future.
Good. Yep. So I want to delineate one thing for the audience, because this has been a big passion of mine. The power of the board versus the power of ADHA, where advocacy comes in, because you can't have one without the other. Like you're part of both. The advocacy that's coming from ADHA or GDHA in your particular instance is what helps set the foundation, but they don't get a vote. They don't get to change legislation.
Well, and I think, you say they lay you're right. They have definitely laid the foundation, of continuing to forge the efforts for all these years for local anesthesia, right?
Sure.
And that's one thing, and that's kind of a separate entity. And ADHA, I kind of feel like sometimes ADHA forgot about us a little bit, just because, we're like, there's just so few of us. It's kind of like they've already got that issue kind of progressed through majority of the states. So the ones that are left, they're on to bigger and better issues for the profession. And I kind of get that, right? But, this right here really came down to, the board and being able to drive people into our state, right? Like, because I said this to the group on one of our board meetings, like, if you as a dentist, right, moved into a state and you had always been able to do surgical extractions or crowns, and then now you move into a state and you can't do that, how would that make you feel?
Right.
Because that's really what happens when you have, 46 other states that allow it, and then you come down here to, Georgia or Mississippi or some of these other states that don't allow it. And Delaware's up there too. But my point is that, it's like, well, hold up. I just crossed the border. And for Georgia in particular, we got North Carolina. North Carolina passed in July of this year. So you got North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama even allows it.
Once you
and
cross
Florida.
the border, though, you don't understand
So we're
things
the last
anymore.
one.
You forget
get
things when you
dumb
cross the
and,
border.
like-
It
In
is
Iowa,
crazy.
You know,
And-
Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois, we got a river. So I would say when I cross a river into Illinois, I apparently forget how to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can do
You
more
get
in
more, you
Iowa?
get more dangerous all
Yeah.
of a sudden,
Yeah.
too.
Well, and
you get reckless with your
the thing
local
is, like,
anesthesia.
it takes tenacity. And when I talk to students about, this took years, and I appreciate you so much, Misty, because you took the tenacity and you won't give up. And that's the thing. It takes years of advocacy. And like Andrew was talking about, the difference between the state board and then the special interest group of ADHA, when I talk to my students, I refer to ADHA as a special interest group of
Correct.
ADHA,
Yeah.
a special interest group
I love
ADA.
that, actually.
Yeah.
a
And
lot.
I tried to get on the state board for Iowa, and I filed all my letters and everything, and I wasn't appointed. And they said it was because there was too many people from my county appointed because they don't want everybody from one state. And I was like, well, whatever. Or one county.
That is
whatever.
true. I mean,
But
that's one of the
it
things we
takes-
try to keep everybody from certain areas so the whole state is
represented.
represented. And so
And
they
it takes
do that.
tenacity to get on the board, and it takes tenacity to get things supported from a special interest group. So I appreciate you so much from the fact that you have just that much in your person that you just want to give to everyone else.
Keep
because
going. Yeah.
Yeah.
there's not many people in the world like that.
Well, thank you. I always say, I fall down, but I always get back up because, and I continue forward because you just have to. And like I said, my husband always jokes with me, like, what's your next goal, in life or whatever? Because I'm one that sets goals and tries to achieve them. And, I told him, I said, I want to leave a legacy in my profession. That's what I want to leave. I want to leave a legacy that I impacted and made a difference in my profession, not only here in Georgia, but nationally too. I mean, there's a lot of things that, nationally we still can do, like being able to move our life, like it's kind of silly, like you cross the border, but yet I can't practice across the border. You and I had to take boards. We've been practicing for many years and had to take a board recently for another state. And it's like, and even national board for some states, if you haven't practiced, if you've been practicing for more than 10 years, they may even make you retake national board.
That's so incredible.
Right? Yeah. And so, I mean, those are things that I hope to impact and change. And then also I'm, with a group of hygienists around the country, and we meet regularly. We don't have an official name yet. We need an official name. And we talk about these issues and legislative issues that are happening not just in our states, but in Washington as well. Because right now you have, the ADHA and the ADA, and all of them are talking about license portability, right?
Sure.
That's something that's being discussed in Washington right now, as well as hygienists being recognized as healthcare providers. And that's definitely being something that's talking about. You got Medicare, right? Will dental be a part of Medicare? Those things are being discussed. And I think I just want to see our profession seen as a healthcare provider, and everything I do every single day is I'm really trying to push dentistry into this limelight of what we really provide to our patients, and not just about cleaning teeth. It's about providing health care. It's about quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, the bill that allowed us to be able to go into nursing homes, right? Quality of life for these individuals in nursing homes. I mean, have you ever been in a nursing home, Andrew, and seen what? It's so sad, some of these things. And they don't even know how to care for the nurses and the attendees that, are there. They don't know how to care for people, and dentures and their partials, and they get lost.
Exactly.
That's why you actually have to, it's a law that you have to put the name on the dentures and stuff for that reason.
In Iowa, we have this thing now called Mouth Care Matters, and it's hygienists. I'm sorry. It's hygienists who go in to medical settings, and they teach CNAs and nurses and doctors how to do oral
Love
care.
it.
And so when this initially started, there were some hygienists that said, well, that's giving away our job. It's like, no, they're doing it anyway, or they're not doing it anyway.
They're not doing it.
What we're doing is not me personally, I'm going to be taking the training, but there's a group that trains, they take hygienists and dentists, and they go out and train medical professionals, and then those medical professionals, if somebody's on a ventilator and that hospital doesn't have a hygienist, guess who's doing that?
The nurse.
either the nurse or no one. And if you're on a ventilator, like my father-in-law was on a ventilator for quite some time after his abdominal aortic aneurysm. He was at the University Hospital for a long time in a coma.
Oh, wow.
And if no one's doing that, aspiration pneumonia is
I'm telling you,
it's
it is.
real.
It's real.
And people, like, I love AASH so much, the American Academy of Oral and Systemic Health, because there's medical professionals there that are listening. And the dental professionals are there listening to the medical professionals. And everyone is just, there's this great feeling of respect. It's kind of like OSAP, the Organization for Safety and Prevention, or Safety, Asepsis,
Yeah, I was going to say, Michelle Lee was over here giving us, taking pictures.
I never
of
can
us.
remember what the acronym stands for, but I always picture OSAP as like this big, welcoming table, and whoever sits at that table is respected, and everybody gets an opinion. And like this advocacy stuff, I feel like sometimes it's like people butting heads against each other, arguing over practice regulation and what you can and can't do. And then there's these other associations where it's just so welcoming. But I understand that sometimes that headbutting is needed.
Right, it is sometimes. I mean, I think that sometimes it helps people like think differently, right? Because I think, and I will say that that's what I've loved about this board that I'm on, is that, you know, everybody speaks their opinion, and, you know, we work together. And there's some things, for instance, even with, you know, the bills that I've worked with in the past, but even with just this newest local anesthesia, it's not exactly what I would have liked, right? There's some things that I don't like, but it was things that, you know, other members felt, you know, really passionate about and felt it should be that. So, you know, you have to have compromise. Instead of always like butting head, there's a way that you can come to a solution and work together and for the best interest of the public.
People are so fearful of the change and fearful that something's going to get taken away when they don't recognize that if that change happens, it actually could be giving them things.
Exactly.
Like, and I worked for a gentleman for a long time who was so open-minded about that kind of stuff. And he would be like, I don't understand why my dental association as a special interest group is arguing with your hygienist association, because this change would help both of us. Like when you were talking about anesthesia, if he got behind and need me to anesthetize a patient that he was going to be doing a procedure on, if I got behind and he was doing something in his op, and then I was going to be doing scaling and replaning next. It's helping each other and the greater good. And that's why I love the state dental boards that are truly like working in a symbiotic nature. Like you said, yours is working well now, where change is happening and organizational change is being supported by rational decision making rather than arguing.
Oh, exactly. And like I said, we've definitely had that in the past, but things, we've just really grown as a board. And that's why I'm really nervous about the new, you know, legislation that's currently at the Capitol, is that, you know, by adding more individuals to the board, it's going to change the dynamics, and we're really got our mojo down, right? We're really becoming this well-oiled machine, and we're really progressing, and I think it's going to be great for our state, and I really just hope that it doesn't cause a hiccup for us. But at the same time, I do like the fact I got another hygienist coming, but at the same time, I am a little nervous just about the change of the dynamics, because you just don't know who will get appointed to the board.
I'm trying to remember what that research is about board size, the ideal board size being 12 to 15 members. Because if you get much more than 15, they say organizational change and action doesn't take place.
Right.
Well, and that's the worry. I mean, you think about it. Local anesthesia took 30 years. Now we add 5 more people. Will it take now another 30 years?
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean to say that, but it's like, it's one of those things that I think that we have to be mindful of, you know. But like I said, at the end of the day, you know, I'm just very honored to, you know, be on the board and represent hygienists in my state. And most importantly, you know, I'm working with a great group of dentists, you know, and our consumer. And so I really am excited about what we're doing and so forth.
And not everybody has to be a driver. Like, I just remember my dad saying that once, you know, not everybody has to drive the school bus, but everybody's got to ride the school bus to school. And to get on the bus is what's so important. To be a member of your professional association, to have your voice be heard. That grassroots membership is so important. Like, there's a lot of stuff my professional association does that I don't necessarily agree with, but I will pay my dues until I die. Because I see what happens when people have consistent membership, when that money is consistently flowing and advocacy occurs, and it occurs in a way that's beneficial and organized. And I'm not always going to agree with everything, but you know what? I'm not always going to be driving the bus, and that's okay.
And that's exactly
okay.
right. That's exactly right. I will always be a member for the rest of my life. I personally don't really do much with GDHA anymore. Well, honestly and truly, since becoming a board member, it's a lot of work. Nobody realizes
there's
how
a
much
conflict
work
of
it is.
interest, too.
And it's a
hard to balance
conflict of
that.
interest.
Yeah, and that's
It
something
is,
you don't
and
you don't
so-
want people questioning what you're deciding.
Correct, because my role, their role is really to advance the profession, whereas my role as a board member is for the
Protect the public,
public, just to
yeah.
protect the public. So, do we have things that we, align on as far as that goes? Yeah, I agree with some of the things, but I haven't really been as connected. Oh, probably since, 2018, as far as that goes, and have really worked more on more national issues and kind of stepped away from the GDHA responsibilities, and also working on other projects that, I can impact the profession differently.
And recognizing that when you step away, that there's people who will step up.
There are, I
They
think
will step up.
They will step up, and they've done a fabulous job with what they're doing. And it's so good to see that passion with people that you were in the organization with right when I was president, and then to see them continuing to light that fire and do things, and then seeing new hygienists that are coming up. So I think it's really cool to see that as they all grow and, in their profession. And I think that's one of the greatest things about being a member of ADHA. And I think that we talk about like hygienists and not staying up and only doing so much CE and different things like that, right? I think members that are members of ADHA, we stay much more affluent on where dentistry is headed and take more courses because they offer those things that we can be. And
you choose to be engaged.
And
it's a choice.
Right.
It is a
But I
choice.
think by being a member, you're just naturally more engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
When you
I would
choose
agree
to
with
write that check out, I always think I could do something else with this money, or I could choose to stay tuned to what's going on. And even though, like what I was saying, I was trying to get on the Iowa Dental Board. When I didn't get on, I was like, okay, I'm still gonna kind of step back. I'm still gonna be a member. Now I'm doing some more international stuff, but as long as you're a member, you're going to be informed, and you can then have the choice to either read the email or not.
Right.
But at least you still have the choice, and it's not that much money. It's like a half a day's work.
No.
It's not that much money.
And
Bogey over here making the big bucks over here.
Oh,
I was like,
stop
holy
it.
crap.
Bogey, you
Dr. Bogey.
Dr.
Jeez.
Got it.
Bogey,
Hey,
right?
so we do need to wrap up here, but I do have one quick question about someone is listening to this and is inspired by your words, and they want to try and do what Bogey hasn't been able to achieve and be on their dental board. What would you suggest that they do to get themselves prepared? Because this isn't a thing that, for most people, next year's you're not going to get appointed next year. So what should they be working on now for their future?
I think you need to work on being familiar with your legislators, right? And what issues are impacting the profession. And be someone out in the community, be, raising your voice, being seen, being heard, making that impact, getting out and educating your legislators on what hygienists do, and be able to do that. One of the things I will say, and I didn't share this, but back when we had legislation going on, I always used to meet legislators and would shake their hands. And when I would shake their hands, I would have a packet of ketchup in my hand. And they would always be like, "What is this for?" And I would be like, "Because Georgia needs to catch up." And
good
so,
one.
and I always wore red, and I wore red lipsticks. It was always about this image. So sometimes when I meet people, they're like, "Oh, you're the red lipstick lady that came in here," or "You're the ketchup girl," because I made
Your
every
squeaky wheel.
yeah,
Squeaky wheel.
And like I said, it was different. It was right. It's the crazy. It's like I said, it's the crazy people who believe they change the world are the ones who do.
Yeah.
And it's like ketchup. And everywhere we went, we took our pictures with ketchup to social media, like Georgia needs to catch up. And it was a great ploy. And, and we really ran with that. And so I think that too, because I was just always that squeaky wheel, and every single time, some of those legislators end up with packets and packets of ketchup.
So I have a
every time they ate
question.
their fries, they'd be like, "Oh, there she is, ketchup girl." They were always, and so I wanted them to think that every single time they opened up ketchup,
Yeah.
that they were thinking, "Oh wow, we need to catch up." I need to do that campaign again, but I really
That'd be good.
When you were in school,
Yeah.
did someone encourage you? Because I try to find students who I just think would be great for advocacy, and I make sure I pull them aside and I say, "Hey, I see this spark in you. I really think that you could be a great advocate for change in our profession. Did someone say that to you?
Well, I mean, I was asked to be our SADA president,
Yes.
right? So I was SADA president of our class. So, yeah, I mean, my teachers were always ones to really support me. And in that, I'm one of those, I won't shut up.
Love it.
I mean, sometimes it's annoying, but I'm going to keep talking
we
until,
need it so bad.
Yeah, my mom always used to say, like in my baby book, it says that the word I hate more than anything is no. And it is absolutely true. If you tell me no, I'm like, I'm going to figure out a way, one way or another. We're going to figure this out. Because, you just got to be able to keep pushing forward, whatever it is, in anything in life, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly and truly, just get to know their legislators, become familiar with, what's happening in their states, how you compare with the rest of the country. And really, be seen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to, in order to get on these boards, you have to know, you have to be represented by legislators and people that want, and or social interest groups like GDHA. I mean, they wrote letters in. So, and then you yourself have to write a letter. But, and I think in my letter, I didn't talk about just advocacy for hygiene. My advocacy actually started when I was like in elementary school in 5th grade. And this is going to show my age, but I actually had my whole school write letters for Save the Dolphins so we could stop catching dolphins in the tuna. And so I was actually responsible for partly, or not completely, but wrote into Washington in 5th grade and had my whole school and everybody do it to save the dolphins. And that's actually why StarKiss, this is back in the 80s, so,
Yeah.
But that's actually how it got changed on the cans where it actually says, dolphin free.
Yeah.
Yep,
Huh.
That's nice.
So advocacy is something, or being able to change the world.
Small ripple turns into a giant wave.
It does, a small
Yeah.
ripple, and I'm that small ripple, and one day I'll be a big wave.
You already are, dude. You
love it.
already are.
All right. So, Misty, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, how can they contact you?
They can reach out to me at Misty Mattingly, RDH @gmail.com.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
This has
Boge.
been fun.
Anytime.